All right, so we are in Proverbs chapter 8. Now, we have said that in Proverbs, both sin/temptation and wisdom are presented as being women of opposite character. Sin, temptation, folly is portrayed as a seductive woman who invites the naive to join her in sin, which leads to death. We talked about that a lot last Wednesday evening. Wisdom is portrayed as a woman of integrity, inviting people to learn from her in order to live the best life. Last week we spent time watching the seductive woman ply her trade from behind the lattice of a window. This evening we're going to watch wisdom at work, and we will try to notice the differences between those two as we go along, okay? So here in chapter 8, verses 1 through 11, it says, "Does not wisdom call out? Does not understanding raise her voice? At the highest point along the way where the paths meet, she takes her stand. Beside the gate leading into the city, at the entrance, she cries aloud, 'To you, O people, I call out. I raise my voice to all mankind. You who are simple, gain prudence. You who are foolish, set your hearts on it. Listen, for I have trustworthy things to say. I open my lips to speak what is right. My mouth speaks what is true, for my lips detest wickedness. All the words of my mouth are just, none of them is crooked or perverse. To the discerning, all of them are right. They are upright to those who have found knowledge. Choose my instruction instead of silver, knowledge rather than choice gold, for wisdom is more precious than rubies, and nothing you desire can compare with her." So we'll stop there. So wisdom calls out and raises her voice, and she's trying to draw attention to herself. And wisdom, it says, goes to the highest point along the way where the paths meet. What do we call that, where paths meet? An intersection, crossroads, yeah, a fork in the road. And we talked about this, pardon? Conjunction, yep. So we've talked about what happens when we come to forks in the road of life. And it represents when we have a decision to make, right? Am I going to choose sin and rebellion against God, or am I going to choose obedience in God's way? And wisdom is right there at that fork in the road, calling for us to make the right choice. Who else is at that fork in the road? Satan, yeah. Temptation, yep. But it says wisdom is also at the entrance of the city. Why is that important? What happens at the gates leading into the city? Okay, lots of traffic. It's a high traffic area, right? And the gates, the only ways into the city, you're not going to crawl over the wall, right? So everybody passes that way. So she's at the fork in the road. She's where the traffic is heavy. At the entrance, she cries aloud. So wisdom is open, actively trying to make herself known as the right option. Now, do you remember from last week how the seductive woman operated? And what was different about it than how wisdom is operating? Wisdom is out there shouting, "Come to me, come to me, come to me." In the places where there's a lot of traffic, she's making her appeal to everyone. And how did the woman last week make her appeal? It says, what? One person, and in the shadows, it was twilight, and she was looking for a naive man to come along. And then you kind of get this idea of she kind of sneaky comes out of the shadows and she grabs him and kisses him, remember? Very, very different approach. And it says here that wisdom calls out to all mankind. She calls out to the simple, but not just the simple. The seductive woman seems to have been specifically targeting the simple and the naive. But wisdom makes herself available to any and all. To you, O people, I call out. I raise my voice to all mankind, it says. Why did the seductive woman target the simple and the naive? There you go. Easier to stumble. They're the most vulnerable. They're the ones most likely to fall for her seduction. Why would wisdom cry out to everyone? Okay, the benefits thereof. Yeah, wants everybody to succeed. Yeah. She wants to rescue the simple and naive, but no one has all the wisdom they need. So even those who are wise, there's room to grow in wisdom. And no one is completely immune to temptation. And then wisdom tells us what she is offering. So that kind of starts in verse 7. Okay, verses 6 and 7 there. She speaks what is straight and true. She says, I have trustworthy things to say. I open my lips to speak what is right. So she speaks what is straight and true. There's no trickery or slickery in wisdom. How are the words and lips of the seductive woman described? Smooth and deceptive, yes. Back in Proverbs chapter 5, verse 3, it says that her lips drip honey and her speech is smoother than oil. Right? So the seductive woman that represents our enemy, represents sin, represents temptation, represents the foolishness of going against God's ways. Okay? She's tricky, she's sneaky, she's conniving, she's flattering. She pulls out all the stops in trying to get people to come her way. Right? And wisdom is just out there and says, I'm just telling you how it is. I'm going to tell it to you straight and true. She says that, this is wisdom, she says that her words are just. That means that they are keeping with God's character, and the person who is spiritually discerning sees this. All the words of my mouth are just, none of them is crooked or perverse. To the discerning, all of them are right. They are upright to those who have found knowledge. So wisdom encourages us to choose wisdom and pursue wisdom. Because as she says there in verses 10 and 11, wisdom is more valuable than anything else.